My name is Celia Khanna with Marine Technology TV, and I'm here today with Dan Vela, Vice President of OPG Americas at Oceaneering. Thanks for being here, Dan.
Hey, thanks for having me. Very excited to talk to you today.
Just to get us started, would you mind sharing a brief biography and career history?
Sure. I've been in oil and gas for probably about 30 years now. Um, I've been with Oceaneering for 16 of those years. My background in oil and gas is everything from offshore technician to project management, operations. I did a lot of sales, account management. Prior to this role, I was in a corporate business development role, looking after some of our key accounts here at Oceaneering at the corporate level. Um, and then now back into an operational role. I've been in this role for about 3 years now. So excited to go move between kind of the business development, which is more of a strategic long outlook role, to a more tactical day-to-day operational role, working with some really great teams here that we have here at Oceaneering. So that's kind of my background.
Awesome. And you kind of started just to touch on this now, but what do your day-to-day responsibilities look like? What challenges do you face and how do you overcome them?
So when I look at that, when I think about that question, I think about what a typical operational role looks like, and the folks that are kind of watching this or reading this can understand. Part of this role is more is focused around developing the teams that we need to handle the operations and the scopes that come at us. But really, it's a lot of planning of future work, execution of current work, a lot of risk and hazard identification and management. I mean, that we spend a lot of time on that, not only in the operational side, but also on the HSE or the safety side, just to ensure that that we're keeping our people safe, that we're keeping our operations as effective as they can be. So we spend a lot of time looking at the risk and the hazards and planning and the execution of the work. So a lot of that, we spend a lot of time on quality and making sure that our teams are prepared and that we're catching any escapes that may come up. And then really it's just on the flawless execution of the projects that we're planning, and making sure that they're going off the way that we planned, and that we can come back and reload and head out to the next one. So it's really a lot of rinse and repeat, but it's an ongoing process. And that's really internal. And then there's a lot of external factors that come in that we have no control of, that affect our business around the customer base. And so whether that's weather that comes in that affects us doing our operation, or it's a customer schedule that moves. So there's a lot of inputs that go into this business that are constantly evolving and changing. And so a lot of our day to day is reacting to those inputs as they come in, and then kind of reshuffling or replanning, repreparing, reevaluating, and then moving forward to the next step. So, but it really takes a dedicated team of folks looking at their specific spot on the field, and bringing their kind of their inputs into it to make the plan and make the execution work. So that's kind of the day-to-day stuff.
Well, and I'm sure, you mentioned, having to kind of combat all the risks and hazards, and I'm sure those are changing constantly, not just, because the world changes, but also we're seeing different, trends come to light, which we'll talk about more later, but I'm sure it's a very busy and evolving position to be in.
It is. It's a lot of people don't understand how dynamic this business is. Whereas in manufacturing, you plan something, you put it in the system, and it kind of flows through. This does that, but it has a tendency to kind of move around in that process. And our job is to really kind of keep it as tight and as in line as we can with the plan, and follow it all the way through execution. And so and that's evolved over time of us learning how to do that the most effective way for both internal and external results. So, and we're still learning. So it's always something new. So
It sounds exciting.
yeah, it's never a dull moment, that's for sure.
Awesome. And can you give us kind of a brief overview of oceaneering statistics? So just something to kind of help our readers gauge the scope of your operations.
Yeah, so the group that I'm in is we refer to it as OPG, which is the Offshore Projects Group. If you look at Oceaneering as a whole, as a company, there's several different business units that make up all of Oceaneering, and we're one of them. We're actually one of probably the larger revenue producing business units within Oceaneering. Um, my remit, I cover basically all of the Western Hemisphere for OPG. There's folks that cover the East that have similar scopes and similar roles, but I look after mainly all of the Western Hemisphere. Our largest amount of work is obviously here in the Gulf of America. We have a large presence down in Brazil, where we do a lot of work down there for Petrobras and some of the other operators down there. But from a vessel activity standpoint, the biggest bulk of the work is here in the Gulf of America. We do vessel work in the East as well. We have about 3 vessels over there that are doing work in West Africa and in some other places. But we mainly cover, my business covers everything from Gulf of America, the Caribbean, down to South America. And so right now, our current fleet is Gulf of America based. We're obviously looking at opportunities in South America as well. So, but that's kind of where we are. My group has about 900 employees in it, and about a third of that is in Brazil. The majority of them are based either here in Houston or in Louisiana, where our operational base is. A lot of our project management and project support is based here in Houston, where a lot of our customers are based, and also our functional support is here. So all of our engineering contracts, all of that is really kind of housed here in Houston. And they play a key role in that day-to-day operations that we talked about earlier, and also through the project execution as well. So there's a lot of moving parts that go into making the machine work, and there can be spaced out. But our process allows us to bring all those teams together as we move forward. So that's kind of who we are. Like I said, we support global operations as well. So the teams in Houston will support the teams in the East, and vice versa. We will pull in SMEs from the East to help us if we need them, or down in Brazil. So a lot of moving pieces, and we're able to flex and kind of pull in what we need when we need it, based on the scope and the requirement of the opportunity.
Fantastic. And you kind of started to touch on this, so I want to dive a little further into it, the fleet. If you could talk a little bit about, what kind of vessels you guys have, how many, if you can touch on maybe like when they were built, and then, kind of looking at recent additions to the fleet, or if there are any joining soon that we can look forward to.
Yeah, so we've been in this business for decades, and our fleet size has always kind of changed based on the demand at the time. I think a couple of years ago, we really looked at how we wanted to approach our fleet for a longer term strategy. And so we went to our management team and our board of directors, and we said, this is what we think we need to go forward with in order to make our group, to grow our group and make it a profitable group, and really have a longer outlook on how we are going to grow our business. And so we entered into some longer term agreements with some vessel owners on some vessels, and that's allowed us to really lay out a 3 to 5 year plan and execute that, and not have to worry about what our fleet size looks like. And I'll talk a little bit about the challenges with that later. But what our current fleet looks like now in the Gulf of Americas is we have 5 vessels that make up our fleet, and we have a range of size of vessels. And so when we talk about boats or vessels, and we talk about we speak in terms of capabilities of the vessel. And so I'll talk a little bit about kind of what those boats look like. So we have 2 larger vessels, large for us. There are bigger vessels out there. That's not a market that we play in. We think our niche is in this space, but we have 2 larger boats that have 250-ton active heave cranes on them, with about 12,000 square foot, a little over 12,000 square foot back deck size, which is required for some of these larger scopes. And what we do with these boats is we really focus on subsea hardware installation, interventions, things like that require a lot of equipment, bigger equipment, larger crane capability at deeper water depths. So we own one of those boats, which is the Ocean Evolution. You see it in my background here. That's an Oceaneering owned boat that we built a while back, and we own and operate that vessel. The other one is a boat that we charter from a vessel owner, and that's on a long-term charter to us. So the way that works is we sign up the boat for a long term, and it's basically ours to market, and we staff it with Oceaneering management team and execution team, and then the vessel owner staffs it with the marine team that operates the vessel, the master, the engineers, and things like that. And then we coordinate with them on operations, on what's needed for the vessel and things like that, any type of maintenance and stuff like that. So those are our two larger boats that we have in the fleet. We have two what we call medium-sized vessels. Those are they have 165-ton active heave comp cranes on them, and a slightly smaller back deck. And those two vessels can be used. They can flex up or down. So those two vessels can be used for some smaller installation work that we talked about earlier, and intervention scopes, or they can also go and do what we refer to as IMR, or inspection, maintenance, and repair work. And that's not as equipment intensive, not as operationally intensive. It's more regulatory, going out and doing inspections on installed equipment, and it's regulatory based. So the government says you have to go out every so often and look at things and make sure that everything is still connected right and hasn't moved or shifted, or you're taking readings and things like that. So we're able to flex these vessels up or down based on the needs of the customer. And so we have the two larger boats, we have the two medium boats, and then we have one smaller vessel that's significantly smaller than the rest of the fleet. And it does mainly just the IMR based work. And so that's a chartered vessel as well. And it stays busy just going around and doing smaller, less invasive scopes. It has the ability to go to do some subsea work, but it's really more of just an IMR vessel. I think it's important to note that one of the differentiators that we have with all of our boats is that Oceaneering, they're all equipped with Oceaneering ROVs, which you see in the picture back here, and they're all equipped with Oceaneering survey services on them. So we took a holistic approach to that, and we have all of Oceaneering services on all of our vessels. So we're able to kind of collaborate and coordinate internally better over, and this is another development over time that we've learned, and we're able to do that because we have all of our services on board. It works well for us. It works well for the vessel owners. It works well for our customers. And we think that it kind of differentiates us from some of our peers. So that's what the fleet looks like. And like I said, what we do on a day-to-day basis is we evaluate the needs of the projects coming in, and then we look at the vessel that's best available to suit that, and we try to match the vessel to the scope the best we can based on availability. And if we don't have it available, then we were able to, because of the size of the fleet, we're able to move kind of things around and shift work from vessel to vessel. Having all of Oceaneering on the vessel, having the size of the fleet that we have, kind of differentiates us between some of our peers, and allows us to provide more of what Oceaneering is good at for our customers.
So you mentioned the customers, and that was exactly where I was going to go next, was if you can talk a little bit about the customers that the fleet supports, and if there's any current or recent projects that you could touch on, just to kind of give us a brief overview of what's been done recently, that would be awesome.
Yeah, we have some really interesting and exciting. We have an interesting, exciting customer base. We really do. We have some legacy customers that we've done work for a long time, and we're talking about some major operators and some independents and some smaller ones. And like I said, we do everything from regulatory, go out and look at something, to very complex scopes that are very detailed subsea, that take a lot of engineering and a lot of time to plan and things like that. So we do everything from what we refer to as greenfield, which is new development. So if an operator is developing a new field, this is all new systems that are going in subsea, to working on existing systems, which we refer to as brownfield. And so either, let's say they may be expanding an existing field, by adding new production. They will build the hardware. We'll go out and install it and tie it back to an existing facility. Um, and we do that quite often. That's a pretty standard business for us. And everything, like I said, on the greenfield side, we do new installations from new hardware, new umbilicals, manifolds, trees, everything, anything you can think of that's within the capabilities of our fleet we can do. Some of the most recent complex solutions that we've done, we had a customer that is not necessarily a traditional customer, but they're a huge pipeline company in the Gulf of America, and they had a challenge where they were going to be basically changing production lines subsea in situations. So they weren't going to be, shutting things down and then kind of picking things up and swapping things around. They really wanted to do everything subsea, and so there was a lot of planning involved. We were able to bring in our engineered solutions team, which creates kind of bespoke engineered solutions to challenges. They looked at it and said, we think we can do that by building some complex engineered skids with some isolation valves and things like that would allow them to continue through their operation. They actually built the system, tested it, and then we received the system, and then went offshore and did the installation, and it went off great. It went off without a hitch. Customer was very pleased. It was a huge project for us, and again, it allowed us to bring the full weight of what Oceaneering can do to the table, from the creating the bespoke, engineered product, to building it, testing it, to delivering it, to installing it and testing it, and then coming back. So it's really one shop, one operation. It went through different phases of project management based on the skills that were needed at the time. And we were able to hand that over seamlessly and communicate that to the customer as we move through that process of why we're doing this, how we're doing this, and what they can expect to see as the end result. And it was really just something to watch. It's exciting to watch the teams go through it. It's exciting to do that type of work because that's what we do. And it was a really great project. And so we're looking forward to doing more of that with this customer next year, and then the following year. They've got several of these things coming up, and we think that we're well positioned to help them with that based on what we did, here recently. So that's just some of the things. We had another project earlier this year where we had, again, looking at what can Oceaneering bring to the customer. We worked with our manufacturing group. They actually built a subsea umbilical in Brazil. They shipped it to our subsea umbilical manufacturer in Panama City, Florida, who integrated the hardware to the umbilical. They then shipped that to OPG in Fushan, and we installed it on our boat. And then we took it to Trinidad and installed it for the customer. So again, bringing all of Oceaneering to the customer, bringing the entire solution to where the customer can say, I'm trusting Oceaneering to run this thing from conception to installation. And that's what we do best. And that's what our teams live for. That's what they want. And so anytime we can kind of feed that machine the entire process, that's really where we shine. So a lot of opportunities, a lot of great projects throughout the last couple of years, and we've got a lot more on the books to go, and a lot more next year as well. So we're excited.
Amazing. Well, we're excited too. We'll definitely, keep tabs on what you guys have going
Yeah.
on. So just kind of last two questions here. So the first one, I want to talk a little bit about trends in the maritime industry. So we see things like automation, autonomous vessels, and AI are two of the major trends that we're seeing that are impacting the maritime industry. So whether it's those two trends or others that you're experiencing in your role, what do you find as the most challenging or pressing issues for Oceaneering, and for the operation of the fleet? And how are you working to meet these needs?
Yeah, so when I think about trends and things that impact our business, I spoke earlier about a lot of the external inputs that come in that affect our business, and those are probably the biggest drivers. And a lot of that has to do with the market, and the commodity pricing, and where our customers are spending their money and how they're spending it. And so that's a key point for us to understand, that to help us kind of react or be proactive to those trends or those changes. So really working closely with our customers to understand where are you going to be spending your money and how can we help you get the most out of your money. And again, bringing that full oceaneering complement to, excuse me one second, sorry. And really bringing that full oceaneering complement to the customer so that they can leverage that to do more with what they have. So that's just a part of it. That's probably the biggest thing that affects us. So they're planning their customers planning how much capital they're going to be spending, how much operational money they're going to be spending, and how do we kind of make that the most cost effective solution for them. With regards to AI and automation, when you think about these vessels, yeah, you see a vessel, you see a boat essentially, but it's a vessel that's made up of a complex series of automated systems, whether that's the dynamic positioning systems that keep the boat on station, or the survey equipment that tells us where we are underwater. The ROV systems are extremely complex with automation. And then the cranes are all automated systems. And so automation is huge in our business, and it's something that we focus on. We work closely with all of our suppliers that are key suppliers to make our operation go off flawlessly. And so it plays a huge part of it. And we're always kind of looking at how we can evolve that automation. Are we being the most effective with the equipment that we have, and still being able to maintain safety and operations? And so that's something that we constantly evaluate and look at. These vessels go into dry dock on a regulatory period, and all those things are evaluated and trended. With regards to AI, I think when we think about AI on the vessels, there's some opportunity there, but I think the biggest part is how can we use AI to help us work more efficiently. Some of the things that we do on a regular basis, as far as tracking and planning, how can we use AI to help us with that? From a regulatory maintenance on some of these systems and some of this equipment, how can we use AI to help trend that and really help us predict where we need to be? So we're looking at some of those things. Those are in play. And with regards to autonomous vessels, we have a group within Oceaneering that's their sole focus, is looking at autonomous vessels. And so we collaborate with them on what do we use the vessels for, and how can we integrate autonomous vessel work into how we use our fleet in the Gulf of America. And so that's an ongoing discussion on how we do that and what we can use that for. We lean on their kind of subject matter experts to tell us where the value of that is and how that works. And then they lean on us to really understand to your question, what does a day-to-day offshore operation look like and where do we fit in? So all these things ongoing in the background while we're maintaining kind of operational focus in the foreground, and making sure that we're operating safely and getting these projects done. But again, it all goes back to bringing the value of when the customer hires Oceaneering, what can we bring to them beyond just, hey, give me your equipment, I'll go out and run it underwater. We really want to be able to go to them and say, we know you want to do this, but we think if we did it this way, it could be more cost effective. There's more value in it. It also helps bring new technology into the customer and things like that. So that's what they get when they hire Oceaneering. And some of them take a lot of it, some of them take a little of it, and some of them don't take any of it. But we really adapt to what they need.
Amazing. And so just last question to wrap us up, what can we what can we look forward to in the future from you guys?
Yeah, so I think, in the near term future, like I said, we look at 3 to 5 years out, and trying to really understand what does our fleet need to look like in the next 5 years, and what does it look like? How many autonomous vehicles are included in that? So all those things, again, are in play. We're looking at how do we reduce our crew sizes offshore. Not that we want to reduce people, but we see areas where we can move into remote operations, where you move those people from offshore to onshore. And we're doing that now with remote operating centers across the world, where we have ROV pilots that are sitting in Morgan City that are operating ROVs that are out in the Gulf of America. And there's other remote centers that we can tap into. So moving remotely, looking at autonomy, and things like that, and really trying to understand what does the fleet look like in the future, and how do we kind of prepare for that now. A lot of that takes the customer's input, and what do they see in the future for themselves, and where do they see themselves, and so trying to balance what we think we see versus what they think they need, and bringing those two things together into a clearer picture that we can plan for. So on top of everything that we talked about earlier on the day-to-day operations, that's kind of happening in the background, and we're looking at that as well. So a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts, a lot of challenges, but we have some great people here that do great things and that are well prepared for the challenges, and that's what they want. Our teams want to be challenged, and they want these new and exciting opportunities to think about and plan for and problem solve with, and so that's kind of what we do here.
Amazing. Well, best of luck with all the ever-changing world out there. And we're excited to see what you guys got going on.
Absolutely. No, this has been great. And like I said, we're excited for the future, and we're excited to be talking to you guys, and hopefully we can have a follow-up, in the future, and kind of come back and check in on where we are and what's changed.
Yeah, we'd love that. Well, thank you for being here, Dan. Thank you for taking the time, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you and have a great day.
You too.